Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, striking hard in Lebanon as Israel takes out tens of thousands of stored missiles. Plus, PR fallout for Hassan Nasrallah from Israel's pager strike. Yigal Carmon from Memory brings the latest about the Hezbollah leaders standing with his own army. Plus, Ambassador David Friedman on his proposal for a one-state solution. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. This week, the IDF warned civilians to evacuate areas in southern Lebanon, where Hezbollah stores and launches weapons. Over the past weekend, the terror group hit Israeli cities as far south as Haifa and Nazareth. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
Israel is warning Lebanese civilians to get away from homes and buildings where Hezbollah's DR-3 cruise missiles are located as it prepares a massive strike.
We advise civilians from Lebanese villages located in and next to buildings and areas used by Hezbollah for military purpose, such as those used to store weapons, to immediately move out of harm's way for their own safety.
IDF chief spokesman Daniel Hagari explained that the Russian-made cruise missiles are embedded in civilian homes and ready to launch.
Here you can see how we identified the terrorist making an opening in the building that exposed the missile. In a precise strike, the IDF eliminated the terrorist and this missile launching infrastructure shortly before the launch.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog railed against Hezbollah's 150 rocket attacks that struck deep into Israel, sending hundreds of thousands of Israelis racing into bomb shelters Sunday and forcing schools to be closed.
Children, the elderly, the sick, residents who simply wish to live in peace and security.
Israel intercepted many of the missiles in the sky, but some hit, including in Jesus' boyhood home of Nazareth. Israel is striking back hard, hitting about 400 launchers with the capability of launching thousands of rockets.
The price that Hezbollah pays is increasing. Our attacks will increase. We have attacked hundreds of terrorist targets in Lebanon in recent days.
Israel dealt a stunning blow to Hezbollah last week when it struck a building in Beirut where Hezbollah's top commanders were plotting an invasion of the north.
All of these leaders were meeting together in order to launch the same horrific, horrendous attack that we had on October 7th by Hamas, by burning Israelis, butchering them, raping their women.
In Gaza, where fighting continues, Hagari says there's no confirmation of reports that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Defense officials are unsure if he's been eliminated or gone deeper underground. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
On Monday, Israel launched Operation Northern Arrows, designed to allow tens of thousands of Israelis to return home. It's Israel's biggest bombing campaign since the 2006 Second Lebanon War.
Israeli warplanes launched more than 1,600 strikes to destroy Hezbollah rocket launchers, drones, and UAVs inside southern Lebanon and the Beqar Valley.
Essentially, we're targeting combat infrastructure that Hezbollah has been building for the past 20 years.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says they've taken out tens of thousands of weapons in Hezbollah's arsenal. Many of the weapons are in homes and buildings in civilian-populated areas. Multiple videos of the strikes showed secondary explosions igniting rockets, and the IDF released photos of Hezbollah rockets inside Lebanese homes. The strikes follow recent targeted attacks that decimated Hezbollah's top military leadership.
Over the course of 1 week, we can say that in many ways, Nasrallah remains alone at the top.
Nearly 500 died in Monday's wave, and some 2,000 were injured, many of them Hezbollah fighters. The IDF issued warnings to Lebanese civilians to get out of harm's way.
However, even as we called on civilians to move away from danger, we saw that Hezbollah operatives were doing the opposite and acted to prevent civilian moving safety.
Hezbollah fired hundreds of rockets as far south as Haifa, sending Israeli civilians to bomb shelters. While some rockets landed, most were intercepted by the Iron Dome. In Lebanon, thousands clogged the roads north in an exodus to escape the fighting. In a message to the Lebanese people, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel is not at war with Lebanon, but Hezbollah.
For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. Those rockets and missiles are aimed directly at our cities, directly at our citizens. To defend our people against Hezbollah strikes, we must take out those weapons. Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon.
The IDF says this is just a prelude to bigger goals, including eliminating Nasrallah. The question is if and when Israel may launch a ground invasion. Coming up, after Israel's strike on Hezbollah electronics, what's the fallout for Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah?
With so many of Hezbollah's leaders having been struck in the last few weeks, Hassan Nasrallah is left with fewer men in his war cabinet. That, plus the recent pager incident, has caused his overall standing to plummet in the eyes of the world and his own military. Yigal Carmon from the Middle East Media Research Institute stopped by to tell us more. Take a look. Yigal Carmon, thanks for joining us, founder of Memory. Tell me, how are people in Lebanon, especially Hezbollah, how are they reacting to the leadership of Hassan Nasrallah?
Well, they are in a very, he is in a very precarious situation. There is a big distrust, a fall in the trust in his leadership. And why? Because the Hezbollah operatives and leadership who have remained see him as the one person that is responsible for the mishaps that happened. He, on February 13, 24, he spoke on Al-Manar TV and said to everybody, drop your cell phones, throw them, put them in an iron box, don't use them, you, your families, everyone. And he personally is responsible for the buying of thousands of pagers from a company in Hungary that isn't even a company. It's a residential place with a sign, unknown. Thousands of pagers that were used by the operatives and exploded. So they see him as responsible. And it's no accident that he did not show up in any way, not even speaking from his dungeon at the funeral of all those who died, because he's responsible for their deaths. Everybody knows it. So Naim Qassem, his deputy, was sent to speak. There is a distrust in his leadership, and it will show up in the coming month.
How serious is a threat to his leadership?
First of all, as long as he has the support of Iran, he can still stumble around. But the Iranians are suspecting his leadership also because it is now out there that Raisi, the former president, had one of the pagers. And there are suspicions that it exploded, and this is what caused the helicopter's crash. Wow. And there are others that the ambassador in the Iranian ambassador in Lebanon and others. So he will lose the Iranian support as well. He is just not fit. He acted in a totally irresponsible way. I mean, to find some company that doesn't even exist and buy from them thousands for your people, this is highly reckless.
And where do you see this going right now, the battle right now in Lebanon?
as it was before, it all depends on Iran. And Iran does not need this fight now. They don't need a war, a regional war. They don't need a war with them. And they will not come to the rescue of Hezbollah because they have not done it in 2006. They fight to the last proxy, and they will not help Hezbollah even now. So like in 2006, where the Hezbollah had to agree to the Security Council Resolution 1701 to stay behind the litany, they will have at some point to agree to that because Iran will not be there to fight for them.
Yeah, Yigal Carmon, great insight and analysis. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next, former Ambassador David Friedman talks with Gordon Robertson about a possible road to peace for all those living in Israel.
Former U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman has written a compelling book examining the indelible impact of the October 7th massacre on Israel. In his new book, One Jewish State, he makes the case for Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria and what he thinks would be the best outcome for Palestinians, Arabs, Jews, and Christians alike. Here's the first part of his interview with CBN President Gordon Robertson.
Why have you come to the conclusion that this two-state solution is no longer viable?
Well, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here. The two-state solution is it's been tried and failed. Is sort of the first answer. 18 years ago, Israel evacuated Gaza. Right? Hasn't been a Jew living there for 18 years. Hasn't been a soldier with boots on the ground there since just before, since after October 7th.
Why isn't that narrative part of the public consciousness? Because all of that happened in the Bush administration. It was this great push for democracy. If we give them freedom, they'll vote for democratic principles. It was all part of this sort of Arab Spring euphoria, and it obviously didn't work.
Well, they voted to elect Hamas, right? That's who they voted for. And it didn't stop the world from giving them money, so including America, much to my regret. All the administrations other than the Trump administration funded UNRWA, funded Hamas. They got lots of money from the Gulf, got lots of money from Europe. And these billions of dollars could have been used to build beautiful seafront properties like Tel Aviv has. Same beaches, Tel Aviv, right? But instead they built this massive network of terror tunnels and weapons of mass destruction. So that's case number one. They had a state. There were no Jews there, no Israeli presence there, and they used it just to create a platform to kill the Jewish people. On the other side of Israel, Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank as we call it, after Oslo, the Palestinians were given about half, 40% to govern themselves, Area A and B, places like Jenin and Ramallah and Nablus, and the same thing. I mean, they've created
Bethlehem.
And Bethlehem, yes, and which went from being 80% Christian to 80% Muslim, right? Under their rule.
And that's a narrative that isn't discussed either. I used to be able to go to Bethlehem. I've been told now, don't go because you may not be able to come back. Yeah. We can't guarantee your safety there. I
was just there, and it's really a shell of what it was during its heyday. And the Palestinian Authority, which is supposed to be the better group compared to Hamas. I mean, they have a pension system, which I think you've reported on, where they incentivize terrorists to kill Jews. You kill one Jew, you get a pension. You kill two Jews, you get a double pension.
With our tax money.
With our tax money, right? Which, again, Trump signed the Taylor Force Act. It's now observed in the breach by the Biden administration. So we have no accountability. We've established no accountability within the Palestinian world. And we just can't make this mistake another time because it will be national suicide for the Jewish people in the land of Israel.
Do you consider this whole concept of there shouldn't be a two-state solution, there should be a one-state solution with the Palestinians having resident status? Do you see that as, will anybody at the State Department go along with this?
Not the current State Department, no. Look, people say to me, well, who's going to agree to this? And my response is, I'm not sure I really care who agrees with it. I mean, Israel is in Judea and Samaria. They have military control of the area. If tomorrow, and I don't advocate this get done overnight, I mean, I think it's a trajectory. It will take a few years to do this. But if tomorrow Israel planted a flag and said, look, this is all sovereign Israel, the Palestinians would get up in the morning. They wouldn't really notice anything different. What that creates the opportunity to do over time is for Israel to do what it does well, which is to de-radicalize an Arab population. Remember, 20% of the Israeli citizens are Arab, right? 20%. And more than 20% of the elite universities in Israel are Arab students. You have a dear friend of mine is the former chairman of Bank Leumi, the largest bank in Israel. He's a Muslim Arab. Israel knows how to empower its Muslim minority, its Arab minority. And those values can be exported into Judea and Samaria in ways that no other potential sovereign could ever achieve. And so what I say about this one Jewish state, yes, it's a Jewish state, but in terms of creating the opportunity for human dignity, prosperity, security within these territories, within the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, it's a win-win for everybody. It's the only method that will de-radicalize this area. And if people just take a step back and say, do we care about a hypothetical, abstract principle that has never worked, or do we care about creating facts on the ground that make this area more dignified, more stable, more prosperous? This is the way to do it. And I would just say one thing, Gordon, Mike Pompeo said something which I thought was very profound in the forward, because this is obviously God's will as well. I mean, this is consistent with God's covenants to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. It's consistent with the prophecies of Jeremiah and Isaiah and Ezekiel. And what Mike says is, should we really be surprised that God's will actually achieves the best outcome for all the inhabitants of this land?
Still ahead, more from Gordon Robertson's interview with Ambassador David Friedman.
Thank you for watching Jerusalem Dateline. We're committed to providing you with unbiased reporting from the Holy Land. Through weekly broadcasts, podcasts, and online media, our vision is to reach millions around the globe with the true story of what's happening in Israel and the Middle East, all from a biblical and prophetic perspective. This is a big vision and is only made possible by the generous support of people like you.
Call us toll-free at 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/Jerusalem Dateline and make a donation that will help spread the light of truth about Israel throughout the world.
Have you talked to former President Trump about this?
Well, look, he knows this is out there, and I'll tell you the truth. If I said to President Trump tomorrow, would you be willing to recognize sovereignty over Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria? The question he would ask me is, well, what does Israel want to do? I mean, he's not going to preempt Israel's decision, just like he wouldn't micromanage Israel's war against Hamas, which the current administration is doing. So he would say, what does Israel want to do? And I would tell him candidly, I don't know. I don't know right now. They're fighting an existential battle. It's hard for them to deal kind of in these long-term types of issues without first finishing up the existential issues. And he would say to me, look, when Israel's ready, let them come to me, make the case for this, make the case why this is good for Israel, why it's good for the region, why it's good for America, and I'll give it a fair hearing, and I think he will. And I think on the merits, this plan sells itself. But I think right now we're in a very very perilous time, and I don't think it's quite ready for prime time, if you will.
Well, I mean, just in recent history, right before the launch of the Abraham Accords, there was serious talk in the highest levels of Israeli government. Let's annex Judea, Samaria.
Yes.
Let's get rid of the fiction that the West Bank is some kind of occupied territory. It's ours, and let's take it. But the Abraham Accords put that.
Well, it suspended it for. By the way, the period of suspension ended on August 13th of this year. So whatever agreements were made are no longer applicable. Yeah, look, that was that was where we were. But there's a difference between that and where we are now. Because when I was sitting in the Oval Office with President Trump back in the middle of 2020, we were talking about this annexation. So he said to me, well, how much is Israel going to take? And I said, well, the plan is that they would take about half of Area C, which is about 30%, let's say, of Judea and Samaria, And he'd say, well, what about the rest? I said, well, given the Palestinian reaction, they'll probably end up with the rest of Area C, which would be about 60% of Judea and Samaria. Then he says, well, what are we left with? I said, well, you're left with Area A and B, which are Palestinian. And he said, well, how is that going to work? I mean, you're going to basically create Gaza all over again. You're going to end up with a territory, a small, narrow territory. They're going to get boxed in. Israel's not going to be there. You're not going to be helping them. They're going to be on their own, landlocked. Aren't they just going to become radicalized? Aren't you going to have another Gaza? That was a very astute point by the president. And so I took that to heart. And when I wrote this book, I said, well, let's deal with that. Israel should just take the whole thing. Let Israel take the entire territory, right? I mean, Area A and B are also very significant biblical territory. Take the whole thing. Begin to export the ability to empower the Arab population in this area, focus on the human dignity and the prosperity with permanent residency. These people will know they're never going to get thrown out of their land, and begin to live together. Tear down these walls, live together, but with Israeli sovereignty over everything. I think that answers the question that the president had posed to me back in 2020.
What would you think, if the vice president becomes President Harris? What will you think will happen with Israeli policy?
Well, just at the debate, she talked about how important it is to establish a Palestinian state. I don't understand how anybody watching the news today could think that, given the challenges Israel faces from its Palestinian population on either side, either on the Gaza side or the West Bank side, how creating a platform for these people who will undoubtedly at this point be taken over by Hamas, how this could be in the interests of Israel, the interests of the Palestinians themselves, Jordan, Egypt, the whole region. It'll explode.
It wouldn't be in the U.S. interest.
It would be antithetical to American interests, of course.
But she's just echoing, I mean, President Biden, in the very first week in office, calls for a two-state solution based on the 67 borders, which from an Israeli standpoint, no, you can't do that. Well, you can fire rockets right at us.
Well, the Israeli Knesset, just recently, by an overwhelming majority that included people in the center and the left, rejected the idea of a two-state solution. But it is, Gordon, it is what people say. It's the mother's milk, if you will, of the Democratic Party. They've got themselves locked into this ever since, Bill Clinton, had his moment with Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat. And it is what they believe in. And Oslo has brought this region nothing but misery. This idea that you have one state which is Jewish and Arab, and then you have a second state which is the heart of biblical Israel, which is only Arab, which will destroy every single, semblance of Jewish life from the past, 3 millennia. I tell people, when you think about this, think about the video you're going to watch. You're going to watch a video, in due course, once the Palestinian state is established. You're going to watch a video where Palestinians are going to go to a place like Shiloh or Bethel, and they're going to be there with, with flames and bombs and pitchforks. They're going to destroy every single remnant, every single archaeological remnant of Jewish life going back to the times of Joshua. That's what they're going to destroy. You want to watch that video? Because it's going to me, it'll be, it'll bring me to tears. I mean, it'll be like, imagine what people watched when the temples were destroyed. But that's what you're going to see, as part of a two-state solution.
Well, I've got to give some credit to Hillary Clinton, that since October 7th, she's actually been very strong for Israel.
Yes.
And it was based on the experience that she had in being in the White House as those treaties were trying to be negotiated. And she said that there's no hope here. That the Palestinian side is never going to accept Israel.
No, and that's what, when people say to me, well, the Palestinians won't accept your plan, I said, well, Israel's there already. I mean, it's not a question about accepting a plan. No one needs to ask the Palestinians to give up their dreams of statehood. I mean, if that's what they want to keep talking about and thinking about, but as the Palestinians see their lives beginning to improve, as they see roads being built, schools being built, hospitals being built, through Israel, exporting its values into this area, over time, things will just get better. And we don't need to have anybody sign any piece of paper. This does not require a treaty. It just requires Israel, with the support of America, asserting its sovereignty and helping and getting some help from our Abraham Accord partners to help, rebuild, the West Bank in a way which brings prosperity and security.
And prosperity and security to the whole region.
To the whole region.
So instead of all of this turmoil and radicalization.
Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember to follow us on social media, and you can also access CBN content through our CBN apps. And be sure to sign up for our email blast for information on breaking stories. And please keep praying for Israel and IDF soldiers in this crucial and defining moment. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.